Many people have a picture in their minds of a writer starting out on page 1 and spinning out a continuous narrative right to the end of the book. Some do, but fewer than you might think. A big secret? You don't have to write in sequence. A confident writer should be able to keep his whole book in his mind at all times. He can jump in anywhere. If he changes one thing, he knows immediately how it affects the chapters that come before and after, and makes adjustments on the fly. If you find this hard to do at first, keep trying. It's great practice, and it becomes natural over time. It helps sometimes to keep a detailed outline, which will help you to stay on course along the way. My own practice is to start with the climax of the book, which is that scene or image that first gave birth to it in my mind. When that is done, I then move to the beginning of the book, where I use the first few chapters to help me get a feel for the characters. Once they begin to take life of their own, I move back to the ending again. The ending is critical for your book, and it can be a disastrous mistake to leave it until the final stage of your composition, because then you're in a hurry to get the book done. It's only natural. So this is the reason why many promising books start out great, but then fall flat at the end. The writer is simply tired of the project, and he tends to take subconscious shortcuts, and he loses the critical balance that the book needs, and he fails to think through all of the things that should come out and be tied together at the very end. So be very careful about the ending. The ending of the book is the book. Everything else exists to serve that. Think it through many times. Polish it. Come back to it again and again as your work on the preceding chapters brings to light new angles and new possibilities. Writing the ending first also helps to improve the middle of the book. One common fault is to develop the middle too much. There's excess details, meandering subplots, minor characters that pop up out of nowhere and then disappear without any follow-up. This can give the reader a sense of hacking his way through a dense thicket. A book like that is like a body with small feet and a small head and a gigantic belly. You can avoid this by keeping a clear perspective. You have your beginning, you have your ending. Make sure that what comes between stays in proportion. While I'm in the middle, I still write out of sequence. Basically, I write by characters. Each important character in the story has his own individual story arc, with an introduction, a problem or conflict, a climax, and a resolution. So my method is to write each of these threads, as I call them, individually. For example, in my latest book, Interface, I have threads for Taiki, the anti-hero, for Yara, his lover, through whose point of view most of the story is told, for Egon, the villain, for Jericho Jones, the courageous journalist, and for Freena and Max, Taiki's children. This is how I assembled the book. thread by thread. It ensures that each character gets a full development, and it forces me to pay close attention to the points where they interact. Even within a single thread, I rarely write in sequence. My habit is to first focus on those passages that promise to be most difficult or that require high emotion, which is essentially the same thing. Once these are done, the rest becomes progressively easier. When I am in the last third or so of the book, writing becomes effortless because all of the hard work has already been done. Many, perhaps most writers are left-brained. For them, words pour out in a steady stream. I am right-brained, as some of you may be also. For me, words come hard, but images, action, and psychology come easy. For me, writing is like a process of sculpting. I'll begin first with some rough notes about what I want to accomplish in a given chapter or scene. This is like making pencil marks on a block of marble. With that done, the rough chiseling begins. I begin to work out snatches of dialogue, the action line, some small details of setting. And with that, I can usually begin to visualize the entire scene or chapter like a movie playing itself out in my mind. When I've reached that point, then I can take out the fine chisel and mallet and begin working on developing detail. Just like a sculptor in stone, I create form and detail as much by what I take away as by what I leave behind. Only at the very end of the compositional process do I concern myself with the words themselves. If at any point I feel unsatisfied with the structure of what is emerging, I'll go back and rewrite my original objectives. What does this character want in this scene? What is holding him back? And so forth. It's an iterative process. One of the great advantages of using a non-sequential approach is that it gets rid of writer's block. Are you helplessly paralyzed by that blank white space where page 1 should be? Skip it. Start with page 2 or chapter 2 or anything that seems doable. Once you get your brain blood flowing, you can go back and write the parts you skipped, if in the end you decide you really needed them in the first place. The important thing, though, is to get writing.